We've got a really interesting topic this afternoon. We're talking about quarantine and the impact that's having on aviation. We're really fortunate to have PeterTuggey and Brian Humphries. I'll let them do more of an introduction of themselves, and perhaps they can sort of talk to us about how the virtual working world is for them. So, Peter, I'll start with you, please.
Oh, thanks, Mark. PeterTuggey, General Manager of Aviation Strategy for Medaire, based in Farnborough Airport. Yeah, working from home is certainly an interesting chapter, Mark. I think the sounds of homeschooling, doorbells, and IT frustrations, I think, now commonplace across the global workforce, unfortunately.
And for you, Brian, what's it like?
Well, of course, I was a mechanical engineer, so I'm not very good with electrical stuff. So I found the transition a little tricky. But I have to say, Zoom seems to work quite well. But a bit like Peter, you're never quite sure who's going to come in behind and give you a cup of tea, you hope. Yeah, my background, so I'm a senior advisor to Signature on business aviation industry relations. My background, I was in the Air Force. I ran Shell's global flight operations for 16 years, and we flew more than British Midland, 100,000 hours a year. So I think I've got a background that is fairly broad and hopefully helpful to this debate.
Maybe if people don't understand, we should be really clear. Next Monday, it's a complete lockdown. We've seen this morning the Home Secretary and Secretary of State said it's a quarantine for everything that flies, which means for scheduled airlines and ourselves. To give it perspective, we were discussing yesterday, and we have maybe 120, 130 people coming into the UK every day for supporting UK economy. On Monday, we'll have 0 because it will put off people from coming. They can't come and do business and have a 2-week quarantine. So that gives it the perspective of what we're really facing. I mean, the one thing that people don't understand, and I'll come to you first, Brian, business aviation isn't scheduled aviation, yet the whole world seems to shape what they want to do for scheduled activities. How about us?
Yeah, quite. I mean, the thing about business aviation, we're flexible. We get access to airports that the airlines can't get to, 10 times the number. And we provide a tailored service, which actually, interestingly, although we often hear about the fat cats, it's recognized by both the European Commission and the European Parliament about the value we provide in connecting communities and aiding business. And the other interesting thing, I think, is that during the pandemic, we have not been closed down. All in Signature's case, our 15 FBOs have been operating, certainly not normally, because we've been practicing social distancing, improved sanitizing, looking after the staff. But throughout the whole crisis, we've been receiving medevacs, patients, some of them in sealed containers to prevent the spread of the disease. We've been taking ordinary people who are ill from the Isle of Wight to hospital. All these sort of things have been going on from the Channel Islands, taking nurses out to help in areas that need support. All these activities have been going on. So throughout this period, our FBOs have been open, and we've been developing the necessary processes to safeguard our people and our customers. And we're pretty confident. I'm pleased to say, I'm touching wood, of course, that we've handled quite a lot of passengers. Some of them have been infected, and we've managed to ensure that infection has not been transferred. So for us, I think this quarantine is coming as something of a shock, because we have been operating, as you say, we're nothing like only about 10% of the number of passengers we used to have, but we're still open for business, and important business people have been coming in. And maybe I can just mention how the business has changed. We used to see coming in with full teams. Now they tend to come in on their own, come in, do business, no benefits, no fancy lunches, no meetings, no dinner engagement, just do the work, do the business, sign the deal, and leave. And that's what we want to continue to happen. And that's why we're so worried about this 14-day quarantine.
A lot of the arguments are talking about mass screening of people walking through terminals, people being crammed together in a tube, and all of the steps of what you do through security at a terminal. For those who don't know, what does ours look like stepping through business aviation?
Oh, well, of course, it's all rather different. I mean, we can actually practice social distancing from the start of the customer's journey right through, even through the aircraft. Because if you take a typical business jet with its Club 4 seating and you seat one in each corner, 4 people in say 8 seats, so you've easily got the social distancing. Going through the terminal, it's very possible to keep social distancing, to keep people apart. We've introduced all the good practices like screening, making sure we sanitize the aircraft, the equipment and everything between visits. But honestly, there is no difficulty in keeping social distancing in taking a typical passenger load through an FBO. But you know, one of the things I want to come back to, and which Peter touched on, it's all about managing risk. Aviation is not risk-free, and it never has been. So we're not looking for total prevention. We're looking to the management of risk to as low as reasonably practical. We do that in engineering, as you know. We do it in flying, as we all know. And we do it in medical matters, as we know. And we simply want to do it in managing these people to travel. But I think there has been a big change. We've all seen the big change, haven't we? You know, we expect to see people suitably protected. We expect not to come close to people. We expect to see screens. And we expect to see that in our travel arrangements. And actually, for me, the interesting thing is when you see people scrummaging, as was shown on a recent public transport flight, you look at it and think, this isn't right. It doesn't seem right. And it's the same when we look at beach views. So I think we in our sector, we want to practice best practice. We want to make sure we have social distancing, and we want to make sure we've got the suitable equipment to protect both our people and our passengers.
I think that's a really strong point that you make, that it can't be risk-free, but as a body, we're used to managing risk, and actually we're quite risk-averse. And it's just like opening up schools in the stages. You're managing that risk, and nothing that we're looking at is actually trying to endanger either the population or the people that are traveling on the aircraft. So I think it's a really strong point.
Yes, and I really like the point that, again, Peter made about layering. That's exactly how we manage aviation safety. We look at the risks and we manage each one. We can't get them to zero, but we do get them as low as reasonably practical. When I first came onto the helicopter scene, and it's no surprise to people, in Shell we had a very high accident rate on helicopters. And what we did was to look at it objectively and piece by piece improve the safety at each level. And the result was a much reduced accident rate. And we're doing the same thing here. We're looking at the risks. We won't eliminate them, but we do this test, we do that test, we follow that procedure. And as a result of that, we have what to us and to the public would be seen as an acceptable risk.
Now that's actually a good lead in, and I want to start with the first one. We've seen examples of the likes of Iceland and Austria where they're taking approaches to how they manage quarantine. And then I want to move on to a piece of work that a BBGA team has been doing on an alternate means of compliance. So what do you guys think about the way that Vienna and the way that Iceland have approached this in terms of their quarantine release?
Well,
Peter, what do you think?
The medical experts speak first.
Well, as an engineer, I wouldn't qualify myself as a medical expert, but yeah, I think those are good examples of where industries work together to come up with solutions, and I think that is in essence what we're looking for here. And there's some great examples, I think, that could be used to help situations like this. There are testing precedents that have been set out, the screening precedents that could be set out. I think what people are wrestling with at present is the scalability of some of the tests in volumes, but maybe the BGA sector is a good sector to try some of those solutions and see how they scale.
Yeah, I wonder if I can follow up on that, Mark. I mean, you talked about Vienna and Iceland. I was talking to our people in Vienna yesterday, and actually the system's working pretty well there. as most people will know, what Vienna have said is you either get a test before you come in, not more than 4 days beforehand, or you have a test on arrival, and they have a medical facility within walking distance to undertake the tests. If you've got a satisfactory test result, you can move and do business. If you don't have a satisfactory test result, well, obviously you're quarantined. And what we've been finding is that the majority of the business through the FBO in Vienna is people coming in, very small groups, 1 or 2 people, to sign vital contracts or to deal with essential problems, come in, do the business and go out. And we're actually finding that about 90% of them have had the test before they come. Now, as Peter has said, this is not a guarantee, but it's managing the risk. And if you do the tests, and maybe you do temperature testing and you have self-certification, it's not eliminating it, but it's reducing it to a manageable and acceptable level. And it seems to be working quite well in Vienna. So it's not a bad example to follow, I think.
I think they are reasonable examples. And when we decided as an association with a key group of people to look at this, not just for what we're dealing with now, but we're looking at what we may need to do in the medium term, because the bottom line is we don't know when this is going to end. We don't know how the pandemic is going to cycle, and there may be need for future lockdowns and for quarantines. And there's other talks of corridors. So there's a whole mix of things. So we decided to actually pull together a group to look at an alternate means of compliance that could give us a solution as the tests evolve and as the processes evolve, so that we could try and provide at least some form of solution. You guys have been on this project and have been pretty central in it. What can you tell us about the proposal that's been developed? I'll start with you, Brian, and then I'll come to you, Peter.
Well, I think what we're trying to do is to be pragmatic and to produce something that is sensible, logical, and workable. And you're quite right to touch on the scalability of testing. And that clearly is a problem. If we had hordes of people arriving to be tested on arrival, then that would be extremely challenging with the current state of the art in testing. And I'll let Peter say a bit more about that. But I think that the key thing that we want to do is to layer it. So, for example, you could look at the current situation. There are probably going to be some exemptions. There are probably going to be some air bridges. We could look at those and we could fit those into our own system. And then if there are people coming in where there really is a concern about the probability of infection, then we could seek tests before they come in, or we can have tests when they arrive. So I think what we're looking for is a layered approach that is proportionate to the risk of the individual traveller.
Yeah, thank you very much, Brian. Peter, we talked about the scalability, and if we use the current models that we've got in place, I understand that the test equipment, the portable stuff, we want to do quick turnarounds, is actually quite limited in its capacity. And there could be some trouble with trying to scale this up in the short term.
Yeah, that's right, Mark. I think a week in the chapter of testing at present is a long time. Yeah. And global health organizations are working hard to improve that, and that certainly takes a lot of column inches in the press every day. I think what I was quite proud of in terms of the BBGA proposed approach, and to Brian's point, it was really a layered approach. We talked about scalability, and to Brian's point, a lot of talk about air bridges in the press at the moment, but also creating that public health corridor almost as a passenger arrives at the FBO to the aircraft, on the aircraft and off the aircraft. I think the testing, the kind of public health corridor creation, and I think is a very powerful opportunity for us to position here, and in doing so, reducing as risk as much as possible.
And I think that is a really valid point, because it's something that we're able to do, and being positive about it. If we can get it to work and the scaling changes, I can see this helping the airlines as well. If we can suddenly get it to work quickly and we can get people doing it before they leave, we might be able to free up early movement for scheduled airlines. So there must be a point to which it can start to become easier for us to go through some testing.
And Mark, if I can just say that a quick. I mean, business aviation has always been a tester for new procedures, new technologies. We were first with winglets. We were first with head-up displays. Because you can test it on a small community, and the risk to the general population is small. And so this is what I see here with Peter's advice and all our experts. So we can actually be used as a test vehicle. We're not seeking special treatment. We want to be used as a test vehicle to see if it works. Because if it doesn't work, it's not a big crisis for us. We can get around it. We can move on. But if it doesn't work for a major airline, it is a big crisis.
No, it's a strong point. Just for clarity, that anyone that's watching, just so they're aware, if I'm right, I think the group has decided that the alternate means of compliance is in the right state to be able to make the submission to the Home Secretary in advance of the quarantine date. I think they've actually seen some informal visibility of this. So we'll make it as a submission. We'll see how they react and whether they look at the alternate means of compliance or consider it worthy of an exemption. We'll just have to wait and see. Is that a fair assumption?
Yes, Peter, I interrupted you, so I'll keep quiet. Your turn.
No, I think that's a fair comment, Mark, and I think there's an openness to work with the authorities on the best solution as well. I mean, Public Health England is getting lots of data points on a daily basis, and I think they're vital as well in helping us best support the industry with the right solution.
I would say actually the DFT are doing a lot to engage with industry. There's regular sessions. They've got the restart and recovery and lots of side sessions going on. So it's not like they've cast us adrift. It's just difficult times to deal with. Look, I've taken a lot of your time. Is there anything else you'd like to say to the members in terms of things that they could do to help us or help themselves while we're in the middle of this?
I think Peter first.
No, I think from my point, Mark, is I mean, we work together as a team here, and I think any input from our members as its experiences they're having, which helps strengthen our case, we're certainly keen to hear from them, so that we can strengthen our position as an industry and learn from the experiences we're all having.
Yeah, I'd like to echo that. I think one of the strengths of our little group has been that we've had representatives from a whole range of activities. We've had people trying different things and seeing how it works and reporting back. And I think during this testing and development phase, the more feedback we can get from our members on how they're getting on, what particular challenges they've got, and how we might work with Medaire and others to try and overcome those challenges would be really helpful.
I think those are both great points. And the point I'd like to make is I think industry working together, there's no better picture of the way that people are working together than we were having a discussion yesterday and looking to get rough order of magnitude figures back from all our FBOs and airport operations, and got that information back in good quality in under sort of 3 or 4 hours. Now, that's really good to have industry supporting you in that way. So I think we're speaking with one voice, which just has to make us stronger. So thank you very much for your time, both. I do appreciate. For you, Peter, I hope you enjoy the aircraft at Farnborough. And for Brian, I hope you're enjoying the home life. So thank you very much to both of you.
Thank you.
Mark.